All right, welcome to this new lesson. This lesson is going to be multiple choice, multiple answer, and a single answer and multiple answer. In the listening section, this is the first time we are looking at multiple choice, multiple answer, and single answer in the listening section. So what is this section about? Let's just get right into it. The agenda items are, first, we're going to look at the prompt requirements. So we're going to get a prompt and we're going to be listening to a recording. We're going to get a prompt requirement. Then we've got listening skills and strategies. So what are the listening skills and strategies that you should focus on? Followed by main idea and supporting details. We're going to look at what are the main idea, what's the main idea and what's supporting details. All right. And then we're going to look at redundant and relevant information. So obviously, when you're listening to a lot of information, based on prompt, you will know which one is redundant information and which one is relevant information, okay? Then we're going to do practice for multiple choice, multiple answer. And then we're going to look at multiple choice, single answer, a little bit of intro. I'm going to introduce that activity to you or item type to you. And then we're going to look at scoring. Scoring is pretty straightforward. So we will briefly touch on that. And then in the end, we are going to look at practice for multiple choice, single answer. Sounds good? Okay, let's get into this. So the first things first, recognize what prompt is asking to do, right? So what is the prompt asking you to do? Where you're going to get various types of prompts, and you must always read the prompt carefully to make sure you know exactly what type of information you are being asked to listen for. So you will have about 7 seconds before the recording starts, and in that 7 seconds, you want to focus on the prompt. You want to read the prompt very carefully and understand what kind of information you are being asked and what kind of information you should listen for. Okay, that is the purpose of those 7 seconds, for you to read that to read that prompt very carefully. Now, if you're not reading the prompt carefully, you'll start listening to everything, whatever is presented to you, and you would not know what is the relevant information that you should be focusing on, and you will not know what's the redundant information that you should ignore. Okay, now let's look at some of the types of things that could be asked of you in the prompt. The first type of prompt could be presented to you would be main idea or gist. So it could be asking, what is the main idea of this recording? So you got to listen for and identify the main idea or theme of the recording. So you really need to listen for the topic of the recording, right? You need to understand what is the main theme, what is this recording asking you to do. All right. Then it could also ask about detailed information, right? So if I ask you a particular detail of the information, you got to be listening for listen for and identify specific details. It could be asking you about facts, opinions, definitions, or sequence of events. You got to be focusing on those particular details that are asked in the prompt, okay? It could also ask you about speaker's purpose. Now, you got to listen for and understand the function of what the speaker is saying or says, or identify the reason why the speaker mentions specific information. The purpose of the speaker for mentioning something, that's what you want to look for, okay? In terms of organization, listen, if it asks you for a specific organization, listen for and identify overall organization and connections between pieces of information, okay? So it might ask you about the organization of the information as well. It could ask about inference. So what does that mean? For example, you got to listen for information that helps you infer the meaning, form generalization, make predictions, and find relationships or draw conclusions, okay? Stylistics, it could also ask what is the speaker's attitude, feeling or degree or of certainty of an issue. Okay, so it might ask you about the attitude and style of the speaker as well. Now let's look at some of the strategies that you can use for each one of these. For main idea and gist, we have to listen for the topic sentence. That's super important. That's very, very important that you got to look for what is the topic of this. Now, keywords that explain the main idea, you got to look for that as well, the keywords. And concluding sentence also helps you, because in concluding sentence, it kind of summarizes the topic. So you got to look for those things. If it's asking for detailed information, you got to listen for keywords that explain secondary supporting ideas. For example, words that describe where, when, and how, etc. Depending on the prompt, I mean, whatever the detail it asks you in the prompt, you should be looking for those. Speaker's purpose, you got to listen for an introductory explanation. So it's talking about the purpose, right? Reasons that explain why something is mentioned or who the speaker is addressing. A concluding sentence, phrases such as "I say this because," or "my purpose for speaking today is," and that will give you the purpose of the speaker, okay? In terms of organization, you should look for connections, connective devices such as "and," also, similarly, likewise, showing similarity, but however, on the other hand, shows contrast. So if it's contrasting information that you're looking for, you should be looking for these connective devices. And in terms of order, if you're looking for organization, firstly, secondly, thirdly, or next, finally, you can follow the order in this case, in this way, right? Okay, in terms of inference, what should we look for? We should look for words or phrases that expresses general ideas or summarize ideas. For example, for this reason, it follows that. These are the phrases that you should focus on. We can see that, this shows or indicates that, etc., etc. Okay. In terms of style, you should look for things like words and phrases that signpost personal opinion or emotions. For example, I firmly believe that it is still debatable whether, regrettably, luckily, and modal verbs such as could, might, may shows you the uncertainty, and must, will shows you the certainty. Perhaps, maybe, definitely, this is the style or tone of the speaker. You're looking for the attitude. Is he certain about something? Is it not certain about something, right? What is the tone of the speaker? That's what you're looking for. So it really depends on the prompt that you get, and for different prompts, you will have to implement different strategies, okay? Right, now I'm going to share with you some of the prompts that you can get. There are quite a lot of types of prompts that you can get. And if you get these prompts, what are the testing skills that are tested, okay? Listening skills that are tested, sorry. So number one, according to the speaker, why is fishing similar to farming? Okay, that's one of the thing that you can. I want you to pause the video here, read all the prompts by yourself, and then we will discuss these in detail, and I'll show you the listening skills that are tested in each one of those prompts. Okay. Pause the video here and read these 15 to 28 prompts as well. And these are some of the prompts that you can get, and we will discuss them in detail after you come back. All right, I hope you had a chance to look at the prompts. Now, when you get these prompts, what are the things it's testing you on, right? What's the skill that's tested? So let's look at number one. According to the speaker, why is fishing similar to farming? Okay, so it's asking why fishing is similar to farming. What is it looking for? Similarities, isn't it? It's looking for similarities. It's looking for connections, okay? What produces the lift that makes an airplane fly? It's looking for a reason. What the reason why the airplane flies, looking for supporting information is specifically for that produces specifically to the airplane flying, the factor that makes an airplane flying. That is the thing that you should be focusing on. If you can read the prompt in that 7 seconds, your attention should be how does a plane flies, what are the factors that so you're looking for that supporting detail, okay? Number 3, what does the speaker mean when he says comparisons are useless here? What does the speaker mean? So he says this thing, comparisons are useless here. What does it mean by that? We are looking for, I mean, it could be a positive meaning, a negative meaning. So we really want to understand his attitude, his tone, his style. All right. Now, in terms of number 4, according to the speaker, why are apprenticeships an alternative to college education? Why are apprentices specific information, isn't it? So apprenticeship to college education, what is the connection? We're looking for the connection. Why an apprenticeships? Why are apprenticeships an alternative to college education? Why they are different? An alternative to college education. We are looking for a connection between these two. And this is the specific information that you should be looking for when you're listening the recording, okay? How does the speaker feel about the treaty? How does the speaker feel? Again, you're looking for style and tone and attitude. According to the speaker, what are the benefits of flexi time? You're looking for what are the benefits? You're looking for the benefits. So when you hear, you should be paying attention to when the benefits are mentioned in the recording, okay? Supporting information. What is the lecture about? It's the gist that you're looking for. It's the main idea, it's the topic. So what is this lecture about? What, and usually it's given in the first sentence, it's the opening sentence when it talks about the topic, and all the supporting information should connect back to the topic, okay? Where were Bronze Age pyramids discovered? We are paying attention to the supporting information. Where were Bronze Age pyramid discovered? Supporting information. Where was it discovered? Should be a location, right? We talked about this before in one of our lessons where represents a place. So you got to be hearing for a place, right? Where these pyramids were discovered. What can be inferred about Sir John Franklin's voyage? So we're looking for inferences and conclusions, right? What can be inferred about this whole story? So you listen to the story, and then what conclusion can you make out of that? Then we've got number 10. Why does the speaker say music is language? We look in the purpose of the speaker. What does the speaker imply about the process of invention? Conclusion, we're looking for conclusion. What does the speaker imply? The inference as well, the implication as well. What results from the use of G2 theory? That's supporting information. Again, we're looking for the results from the use of G2 theory. So we will pay attention to that. Number 13, who is the speaker trying to influence when he lists the consequences of vitamin deficiency? We are looking for a purpose, okay? What is the speaker's attitude towards Tupper's project? Again, here, attitude, it even talks about this attitude. It will say it many times in your prompts. You will notice that it gives you a way, it's talking about the attitude. And here we are looking for if it's positive, negative, you're paying attention on connective devices like but, however, and all these kind of things. Okay, number 15, what aspects of commercial airline does the speaker discuss? What aspects of commercial airline does the speaker discuss? So it obviously could be about the gist of the lecture. So you're gonna think about, what's the main idea there. Number 16, what aspects of media does the speaker mainly discuss? Again, we're looking for the gist. What aspects of the media that the speaker mainly discuss? What are the aspects that are given? It should be summarized in a gist form where it's talking about the main ideas. What are the speaker's attitudes towards electronic surveillance systems? Again, it's looking for his attitude. Is he positive about it? Is he negative about it? Is he neutral about it? We're looking for that. Okay. Where was copper discovered? Where it uses that word, and you should know it's talking about the place, right? So we're looking for a place where it was discovered. Okay, what is the lecture about? It's looking for gist. What is the lecture about? Again, it's looking for gist. What are the speaker's feelings about the young people in her workplace? Feelings. Speaker's feelings, again, attitude, tone, or style, positive, negative, neutral. According to the speaker, what is the main benefit of nuclear energy? Supporting information, the main benefit of nuclear energy. Who is the speaker trying to persuade when she refers to indigenous cultures? Who is she trying? That's the purpose, right? What is the purpose of a writer when she refers to indigenous culture? Okay. What conclusions about early childhood education can be drawn? Conclusion, right? Conclusion and inference. So you have to listen to the whole thing about early childhood education, and you have to come up with your, you have to understand the conclusion, right? Don't come up with your own opinions. Should be the writer's, the speaker's opinions. What does the speaker say? Globalization is nothing new. Why does the speaker say so? Looking for a purpose, right? Why did he say that? What does the speaker imply about the collection of sales text? Again, conclusion and inferences. What is the purpose of a speaker's question? We're looking for purpose. It already gives you away. You're looking for the purpose. What can be inferred about the role of small businesses in the United States? Inferences and conclusion, straightforward. What conclusions about the monarchy can be drawn? Inferences and conclusion. So you have looked at all of these 28 prompts that you might get, and they're different from each other. And the information that you should be paying attention to, go back to the table that I just shared with you, look at that, and then practice. And whenever you listen and you read such prompts and you have these keywords in your prompts, you need to think about, what type of question it is and what are the basic things I should be focusing on when I listen to the recording. All right. Okay, so we'll keep moving. For activity number 2, we're going to focus on listening for main ideas and supporting details. Okay, so here, what is the main idea and what are the supporting details? Now, let's look at this prompt here. The first prompt we've got, which of the following do not correctly link materials and their rationale for use in the construction of skyscrapers? What are we looking for here? We are looking for the link of materials and their rationale for the use of construction of skyscraper, which is do not correctly link. Okay, do not means we are looking for the false statements. All right, not shows that we are looking for false responses. So whatever is true, we shouldn't choose that as a correct answer, right? It's a tricky one. That is, you have to be able to identify the options containing redundant information or incorrect information and select these. So incorrect information, you have to identify the incorrect information in the options, and you should be able to select your answers. All right. Material and their rationale for use. This is the key thing that you should be looking. This is the main idea of supporting detail. Here we are focused on the supporting detail, which is the material and their rationale for use. That is reason why certain materials are used in the skyscraper construction. Skyscraper is a very tall building, right? You must know that. Strategies that might be useful for dealing with such a prompt is you listen for names, properties. You're going to listen for materials, right? You're going to pay attention to the material and why is it used in skyscrapers or buildings, right? So what the things that I will be looking for, the supporting details we will be focusing on will be the names of the material, the properties, the use of these materials, and why they're used, the reasons as well. You'd have 7 seconds, like I discussed before. You'll have 7 seconds to prepare before listening. This is enough time to read and consider the prompt, the item prompt, but is in general not enough time to read options as well. Okay, so you shouldn't try to read the options while you shouldn't read the option when you have 7 seconds, but you should really focus on reading the prompt. And once you're listening, do not try to read anything. Do not try to read, just listen and note down information based on the prompt. So if in this case, you will be noting down the information about material, you'll be noting down the information about the connection, the link between that material and what it does to the skyscraper, why it's used. And you want to especially be concerned about the false statements, okay? Based on this information, you should not read the options while you're listening. Do not try to multitask because you're going to lose attention and you will miss out very crucial information that you should be focusing on, okay? All right, let's move on to the first activity. Let's assume we have 7 seconds. I want you to read the prompt carefully. I'm going to read it with you. Which of the following do not correctly link materials and their rationale for use in the construction of skyscrapers?
In today's session, I'd like to start out with a brief overview of development since the birth of the skyscraper. Builders and engineers have continuously looked for ways to improve building methods and materials in order to make these new structures, stronger, taller, and lighter. Skyscrapers are and must be built to last, so they must be made of materials that are strong, durable, resistant to the sun, wind, rain, frost, and snow, and affordable. Concrete is one of the most common materials beyond the steel supports because it's enormously versatile. Its composition can be changed depending on the needs of the building. It can be reinforced, making it stiffer. What I mean is stronger by setting steel mesh or bars into the concrete. And additives can make it set or harden faster or slower depending on the needs of the design. And this will be a key concern that you guys will ultimately spend a lot of time in your careers thinking about, really grappling with this idea. Another very important material is glass, an important material in all this because the steel skeleton now supports the main loads of the building. The outer skin only serves to keep the weather out and let light in. The more light, the better. So glass walls became very popular beginning after World War II because they are weatherproof while providing ample natural light, and also because they are so much lighter and cheaper than masonry or concrete.
All right, now after listening properly and noting down information, now is the time when we can read the options, okay? Now we focus on the options. We knew what we were looking for. We were looking for the material used in the construction of skyscraper and the rationale why they are used. We were looking for a reason as well. Now let's read out the first question. And you know that you're looking for false because do not correctly link. External glass walls are used because they allow light in and are cheap. Was this mentioned? If it was mentioned and it's true, that is not your answer. That is not your answer. I mean, we are very conditioned to listening to the correct answers, but in this case, that's the correct answer. So that means that's not your answer. You're looking for a false statement. So you should be careful there. Okay. Second one, concrete is used because its fixed composition makes its properties more predictable. Now we talked about the speaker mentioned concrete, but it talked about concrete being versatile. Okay, so that's why, and here it's fixed composition, right? So versatile is something that can be changed. Here it says fixed and it cannot be changed. So that could be your answer. Okay, that could, because it's a false statement. Steel is used to support the main building loads because of its strength. We talked about steel, supporting the main building loads. So seems like it's a true statement. So that cannot be your answer. And I'll show you more explanation in the next screen. But that's how you should be thinking when you're reading your options, okay? Let's read option number 4. External glass walls are used because they are weatherproof and lighter than masonry. So did we talk about this, weatherproof and the lighter than masonry? I think that was mentioned as well. So that cannot be my correct answer because that's a true statement. Now, glass walls are used because they can help support the skeleton of the building. I think the skeleton of the building was not mentioned. I mean, something else supports the skeleton of the building. It was steel. So that is a false statement, and that could be your answer. Okay, steel is used to reinforce a building because of its strength. Seems like that's the correct statement as well, so you're not going to touch those. So let's look at the explanations. Now, before we look at the explanation, I want you to think about this. When you were listening out the recording, was every information relevant? If the answer is no, that means that is exactly my point. You don't want to focus on all the information. There will be a lot of redundant information. Okay, so let's read this out. Which sections of transcript are not relevant when responding to the practice prompt? Which of the following do not correctly link material and their rationale for the use of the construction of skyscrapers, and which they can therefore quickly dismiss? Okay, so let's look at this table here. And I'm going to show you the transcript, and I'm going to break it down by pieces of information. And I will ask you, is it relevant or redundant? Redundant means useless. That's not what we need to answer our question here, okay? And we have some explanation on the right-hand side as well. So let's look at this information bit by bit. The first sentence is, it says, in today's session, I'd like to start out with a brief overview of developments since the birth of a skyscraper. Is this relevant? Because we're looking for material, and we're looking for the connection between material and the construction of skyscraper. That is not relevant for us. This is a topic sentence that introduces just the gist, okay? So we can ignore that information. Builders and engineers have continuously looked for ways to improve building methods and materials in order to make these new structures stronger, taller, and lighter. Again, it kind of introduces the gist. It's still introducing the gist. It doesn't start mentioning the materials itself. So we are looking for the type of material, hasn't mentioned the type of materials yet. Okay, so we'll classify that as redundant information as well. Thirdly, we've got skyscrapers are and must be built to last. So they must be made of materials that are strong, durable, resistant to the sun, wind, rain, frost, and snow, and affordable. That information, although this is about building material, the information is too general. No specific details are mentioned about the material itself, what the type of material. That's what we're looking for. It's redundant too. Now, for the first time, the type of material is introduced. It says concrete is one of the most common materials. Beyond the steel supports, because it's enormously versatile. And versatile meaning can be changed. It has different ways of working. Okay, its composition can be changed depending on the needs of the building. So it's not fixed composition. It can be changed. And we had a statement where it says fixed, right? So that was the catch. That's the one that you will use and you would select, because that's the false statement. So it gives you, this is the relevant information. This piece of information is the relevant information. It gives you the details about the properties of concrete that should be noted. Okay. It can be reinforced, making it stiffer. You know well what I mean. It's stronger. Again, it's talking about concrete, by setting steel mesh on bars into the concrete, and steel is mentioned as well here. And additives can make it set or harden faster or slower depending on the needs of the design. All the information here is relevant and you should be paying extra attention to that. Although phrases such as, well, what I mean are redundant, there are some phrases here are redundant because, the rest of this section contains details about the properties of concrete that should be noted down. And you should be noting it down on your erasable booklet. It kind of helps you to kind of think about what are the things that you're listening as well. So that's definitely going to help you. So while I'm listening to this, I will note this information down. Redundant information, I probably would not note anything down, but when it's mentioning, and that's why it's really crucial for us to understand the prompt, and prompt will help us to then go on and note down the information. Okay. Now, moving on, the next sentence is, and this will be a key concern that you guys will ultimately spend a lot of time in your careers thinking about, really grappling with this idea. That's also redundant. It pauses in information. The speaker is addressing listener and perhaps considering how to continue. Okay. Next sentence, another very important material is glass, an important material in all this because the steel skeleton now supports the main loads of the building. The outer skin only serves to keep the weather out and let light in. The more light, the better. Very relevant, talks about steel, talks about glass. Details about the properties of glass and steel should be noted down, which is going to help you to look at the options later. Lastly, so glass walls became very popular beginning after World War II because they are weatherproof while providing ample natural light, and also because they are so much lighter and much cheaper than masonry or concrete. Also relevant. On the right hand side, you can see the explanation. Although the phrases such as beginning after World War II are redundant, there are some phrases in this area also redundant, but the reasons why glass became much popular should be noted down because it still is talking about why the properties of glass and why it's important as well. Okay, so you see that not every information is important information, and you can only pick and choose if you understand the prompt in the best possible way, because that is going to help you to focus on the information that's important, and you will note it down, and it will help you to look at the options later on. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to do the practice for multiple choice, multiple answer. It's a time practice. Take 7 seconds to look at the prompt. I'll read the prompt for you, and then I'll play the recording, and I want you to do this exercise on your own. Pause the video, do the exercise on your own, and when you come back, we are going to review the answers. The purpose of this talk is to...
if you think about light bulbs, they're an enormous infrastructure. They're in every building in the world, more or less. They have kind of a privileged position above us, around us. They can see, if you think about it, most parts of any room. The kind of key was to say, well, what if we consider a light bulb not to be a light bulb, but actually to be a digital projector? It just happens to be really low resolution. In fact, it's a 1 by 1 pixel digital projector. Turn on the wall switch and giant pixel comes out and paints your room. Okay, well, that's ludicrous, but what if you put a higher resolution projector inside that same familiar glass bulb? Well, now you have a device that can illuminate. If you turn on all the pixels the same color, you still have a light bulb in the usual sense. But if you turn on the pixels different amounts and different colors, then you're kind of projecting information out into the world. And if at the same time that you're doing that, you put a little tiny camera inside the bulb, then not only is information flowing out of the glass, but you're collecting optical information. So screw one of those into every one of these fixtures, and suddenly you have a means potentially to put display and interaction everywhere throughout the world.
So please pause the video here, look at the options. It's talking about the purpose, right? So you want the purpose, you must be hearing everything here and understand why a speaker is saying what he's saying, okay? The reason. Okay, I hope you had a chance to look at this. You must have paused the video, and I hope you had a chance to select the correct answers and the purpose. And this is multiple answers, so you should choose multiple, whatever the correct answers are. Let's look at it together. I'm going to share with you that's transcript first. I'm going to read out the transcript. We're going to review the transcript, and then we're going to review the answers. So the speaker says, if you think about light bulbs, they are in enormous infrastructures. They are in every building in the world, more or less. They have kind of privileged position above us. Around us, they can see, if you think about it, you know, most parts of any room. The kind of key was to say, well, if we consider a light bulb not to be a light bulb, but actually to be a digital projector, it just happens to be really low resolution. In fact, it's a 1 by 1 pixel digital projector. You turn on the wall switch and a giant pixel comes out and paints your room. Okay, well, that's ludicrous. But what if you put a higher resolution projector inside the same familiar glass bulb? Well, now you have a device that can illuminate. If you turn on all the pixels the same color, you still have a light bulb and in the usual sense, but if you turn on the pixels different amounts and different colors, then you are kind of projecting information out into the world. And if at the same time that you are doing that, you put a little tiny camera inside the bulb, and then not only is information flowing out of the glass, but you are collecting optical information. So screw one of those into one of these fixtures, and suddenly you have a means potentially to put, display, and interaction everywhere throughout the world. Okay, so let's look at the options here. The first option is, and we want to understand the purpose of this talk, right? What is the purpose of the talk? The first option is suggest ways to make indoor lighting more economical. It doesn't, in the whole transcription you read and heard, it doesn't talk about anything about economics of the lighting. Okay, so you can eliminate that. Very easy for us to eliminate that. This response is incorrect. The speaker asks listener to think about light bulbs and what could be done with them. It does not discuss this in terms of money or economical terms. Okay. Second option, illustrates how an everyday object could inspire new technology. That's exactly what it's talking about. Look at the light bulb in your room and look at what we can do with this light bulb. We can make it a giant projector and new technology, inspire new technology. So that answer is completely correct. And that's the purpose of, the speaker. That's what he's trying to say. That's the reason why he's giving such examples. Makes quite a lot of sense here. This response is correct. The speaker begins by considering a light bulb and what it does, and then imagines what could be done with it. As the speaker adds features to this imaginary light bulb, it changes from a low resolution projector to a high resolution projector to a device that projects and collects optical information. The third option, persuade listeners to participate in scientific study. Doesn't persuade the listeners to get involved in a scientific study. It does. The speaker is not trying to do that. In no way he says, you should participate in the scientific study. So that will be wrong as well. So this response is incorrect because the speaker does not mention a scientific study. Number 4, describe an artistic exhibition using familiar items. Doesn't talk about anything about art or artistic exhibition. So this response is incorrect. Art galleries, museums, and exhibitions are not discussed in this recording. And the last option, encourage listeners to think creatively about mundane items. So mundane items are like just normal items. How you can think about them creatively. That is the purpose of the speaker, isn't it? He talks about mundane item like a light bulb, but then think about it in a creative term. And that's exactly what's trying to do as well. So look at the explanation here. This response is correct. The speaker invites listeners to think about light bulbs, then talks about their use in an unusual way. The speaker goes on to discuss the light bulb in ways most people don't think about. They are an enormous infrastructure. They have a kind of privileged position above us, and that light bulbs each project one giant pixel that paints the room. So thinking about mundane items in a creative way. And that's what the speaker is trying to do as well. So that will be my correct option. All right, let's do one more exercise. So I want you to read, and I'm going to read it with you. The prompt: what happened as a result of arrivals of colonists, right? So people who colonize, what happened as a result of their arrival, okay? This is what you're listening for. Don't worry about the options. I'm going to play, and you're listening what happened. When they arrived in this, the speaker is going to mention of their arrival, and you are going to note down the information when they arrived, what really happened. Let's do it.
We are led to believe that basically much of eastern North America was heavily cloaked in mature forest that today we covet as old growth, and yet at one time it was the sort of ancestral botanical blanket that covered much of certainly Massachusetts and New England. Certainly one of the first things that happened as increasing waves of colonists arrive was the need to clear the land. And this clearing of the land is something that started really in the form of small subsistence farms. The timber was used for building houses, for building ships, for firewood, for all manner of things. The boulders of the glacial erratic stones that were so much a part of the New England landscape are today sort of what we find in the lattice work of stone walls that one can find practically anywhere in the landscape if it's in a relatively untouched condition. By the early part of the 19th century, it's thought that generally the zenith of clearing had taken place sometime in the 1830s, 1840s, and the trees and the forests were essentially clear-cut to an extent that is almost unbelievable.
All right, so please let's read the options now. You heard when the colonists arrived, what happened, what are the events? We're going to read the options. All right, what happened as a result of arrival of colonists? The first option says huge areas were deforested. Okay. Second option, old farming methods were abundant. Option number 3, large expanses were planted with new species. 4, stone quarries were depleted. And number 5, section of land were relineated with stones. So let's read the transcription. I'm going to read it with you. We are led to believe that basically much of eastern North America was heavily cloaked in mature forest that today we covet as old growth, and yet at one time it was the sort of ancestral botanical blanket that covered much of certainly Massachusetts and New England. Certainly, one of the first things that happened as increasing waves of colonists arrived was the need to clear the land. Okay, it was cloaked with what? Botanical blanket. So, are we talking about deforestation? Well, let's keep reading, because they're going to clear the land. We want to understand how they're clearing it. This clearing of land is something that started really in the form of small subsistence farms. The timber was used for building houses, for building ships, for firewood, for all manner of things. The boulders, the glacious erratic stones that were so much as a part of the New England landscape are today sort of what we find in the lattice work of stone walls that one can find practically anywhere in the landscape if it's in a relatively untouched condition. By the early part of the 19th century, it's thought that generally the zenith of clearing had taken place sometime in the 1830s, 1840s, and the trees and the forests were essentially clear cut to an extent that is almost unbelievable, right? So we talked about deforestation. Now, let's review the options. The first option is huge areas were deforested. So that's the correct answer, because it does talk about clearing the land, and it talked about, I mean, what did we have before? Botanic blanket. It was cleared. So this response is correct. The speaker says that one of the things that happened as increasing waves of colonists arrived was the clearing of the land. The speaker also says that sometime in 1830s and 1840s, the trees and forests were essentially clear cut. Okay, so when the colonists arrived, that's what happened. The deforestation, huge areas were deforested. So that's correct. In terms of the second option, old farming methods were abundant. Now, it doesn't really mention that, right? This response is incorrect. Abandonment of old farming methods is not discussed in the recording, so you don't have to worry about that, okay? And you have to remember what is mentioned. After the colonists arrived, did you hear they did that? No? So you have to remember that, okay? And you should look at your notes, once you go and you don't find that in your notes as well. Number 3, large expanses were planted with new species. This response is incorrect because new species are not mentioned in the recording. All right, number 4, stone quarries were depleted. This response is incorrect. The speaker does not mention stone quarries in the recording, so you can eliminate that as well. Number 5, sections of land were delineated with stones. Now, this response is correct. The speaker says that the glaciers, erratic stones that were so much a part of the New England landscape are today sort of what we can find in the lattice work of stone walls that one can find practically anywhere in the landscape. This implies that stones were used to delineate sections of land, all right? So that option will be correct. All right, now we're going to look at multiple choice single answer. So far we have focused mainly on the multiple choice multiple answer, and I talked about, in the start in our agenda. We're going to excuse me. We're going to touch on the multiple choice single answer. So let's look at it, a multiple choice single answer as well, and we're going to do a little bit of practice here too. Focus on question, what to listen for. Again, the prompt here is super important. Now let's read out some of the information here. For example, it will tell you whether you are listening for the main idea. So in your prompt, it's going to tell you either you're listening for the main idea, what was the main cause of company's collapse. That could be an example of a prompt. What was the main cause of company's collapse? That's the main idea you're looking for, right? Or for some supporting information or detail. So you might be looking for a supporting information, exactly as we discussed in multiple choice, multiple answer. Let's look at this as an example prompt. What aspect of past transport policy does the speaker mention? What aspect of past, so what aspect, this is the supporting information related to past transport policy does the speaker mention, right? Or you could be listening for the inference drawn by the speaker. What does the speaker suggest that the factory may have to do? Conclusion, inference, implication, okay? Or you might be listening for the speaker's purpose again. Why does the speaker talk about the fall in car ownership? What's his what's his purpose? Okay, so again, main cause, supporting detail, inference, or you might be looking for the speaker's purpose. Okay, now let's look at this example. I just want to share one example before we dive into practice. So read the question quickly and look at the keywords in the question in the options. In the single one, in the single multiple choice single answer, I would suggest you can read the options very quickly, but only the keywords. Don't worry about the options. And again, the full focus will be to understand the prompt before. Once you start listening, I don't want you to be reading anything other than the options. Okay, so once you have that 7 seconds, please read the prompt carefully. What does the speaker believe is likely to happen in the future? So what I will be paying attention to is what is likely to happen in the future according to the speaker. Everything my focus should be on the future. Okay, options, and if I quickly look at the option, I see media everywhere. I'm not reading the options. I'm not going to read the options because I wouldn't have time, but I feel that I'm going to be listening about media, right? So what will happen in the future in terms of media, right? So the first option is the media will be owned by a small number of corporations. The public will eventually pay for the funding of media. The media will be run primarily for the purpose of making profit. Most media analysts will continue to report what they see. So in all the themes, I kind of can guess the main topic, which will be media and what it's going to happen to media in future. That's what I will be listening for. All right, now let me touch on the scoring very briefly. It's pretty straightforward. It's only going to give you scoring for listening score. It's only going to give you listening score, and it's either correct or incorrect. Again, in multiple choice, I haven't discussed it, but I will briefly discuss on that as well. It only affects the listening score, but you got to be careful. There is negative marking in multiple choice, multiple answer. The scoring has negative marking, and if you're only select the one that you're 100% sure. If you're not sure about the second option or the third option, do not select those, because if you selected one correct and one wrong in multiple choice, multiple answer, you're gonna score 0. So you got to be careful there. Only select the ones that you're 100% sure of. Okay. All right, we'll quickly move on. So now we're gonna do practice of multiple choice single answer. I'm gonna read, and you should read with me the prompt. We're not gonna focus on the options. We're gonna listen based on the prompt, whatever the prompt tells us to listen for, and then we're gonna read the options and solve it together. So the prompt here says, what is the main idea that speaker is trying to convey in her comments? Main idea. So we're looking for a summary. We're looking for the topic. That's our main idea. Okay, let's listen.
I have chronic pain, and at times this is severe, but this is managed with opiates. I know the general public has a very perverted view of opiates because they think street addiction, heroin, drug smugglers. However, if prescribed correctly by doctors in the right dose for your height and weight, and you manage it well yourself, I haven't increased my dose of 80 milligrams of morphine in the last 18 years. So that's a fairly good illustration that no, you don't double it every 10 minutes the way the general public think. And also it's very well looked after by the government. I have to present myself to my GPs, who all get to know me very well, every 30 days, and they have to phone Canberra to have authorization, and I get my monthly dose of opiates to keep me going for the next lot.
All right, I hope you had a chance to listen to the recording. Now we're going to read the options one by one. You may have noted down the information, and we are going to look at the main idea the speaker is trying to convey in her comments. So the first one is the dose of opiates, and she says that she takes opiates for her chronic pain. The dose of opiates needed to treat chronic pain is usually 80 milligrams. Now that applies to her in her case, but it cannot apply to everyone. So that cannot be correct answer, right? Second one, the rate of morphine addiction has not increased over the past 18 years. That doesn't make sense because it's not about the morphine addiction, and we can eliminate that. But we're going to look at the options later on. Then we've got governments can play a key role in chronic pain management. And we've got another option, authorization for prescription of opiates is required every 30 days. Okay. Now let's read the transcription. I'm going to read it out to you, and we'll see if those options are making sense based on the transcription. So I have a chronic pain, and at times this is severe, but this is managed with opiates. I know the general public has a very perverted view of opiates because they think street addiction, heroin, drug smugglers. However, if prescribed correctly by doctors in the right dose for your height and weight, and you manage it well yourself, I haven't increased my dose of 80 milligram of morphine. So that is not that applies on her, not for everyone else, like we said. So that can't be an option in the last 18 years. So that's, and last 18 years also not mentioning anything with the heroin addiction. So option number 2 will be wrong as well, but we'll leave the options. We're going to discuss the explanation soon. Let's keep reading. So that's a fairly good illustration that you don't double it every 10 minutes the way the general public think. And also it's very well looked after by the government. I have to present myself to my GPs who all get to know me very well every 30 days. And they have to phone to Canberra to have authorization, and I get my monthly dose of opiates to keep me going till the next lot. Okay, so let's look at the answers here and the explanation here. Okay, so the first one is the dose of opiates needed to treat chronic pain is usually 80 milligrams. Now this response is incorrect because a speaker states that the dose of opiates needed varies by height and weight, right? So it can't be 80 milligrams. It's 80 milligrams for her case, not for everyone else. Option number 2, the rate of morphine addiction has not increased over the past 18 years. This is incorrect because the speaker has not increased her morphine dose in 18 years. That's 18-year connection or link is that it's nothing to do with morphine addiction. Okay, so addiction has not been mentioned here. Correct. Number 3, that's the correct option. Governments can play a key role in chronic pain management. The reason why it's correct is because the details in the recording supports the idea. The speaker also states that her opiates use is very well looked after by the government. I mean, I have my opinion about this answer. It's not the perfect answer because in the question it says what is the main idea that the speaker is trying to convey. I don't think it's the main idea, but that is the only option that is correct here. So again, you will have to think about it. Sometimes it's a tricky one. It's asking you for the main idea, but all of the other questions, all of the other responses are wrong, and only one kind of makes sense. But I don't think it's the main idea that speaker is trying to convey here. But that's the only correct option, and you'll have to go with the correct option sometimes because this is a tricky question here. Okay, that's my opinion about this summary. Let's look at the last one. Why is it incorrect? Authorization for prescription of opiates is required every 30 days. The response is incorrect because this detail is a supporting point. Although the speaker states that her GP must obtain authorization for her prescription every 30 days, this is not the main idea the speaker is trying to convey. Even though she talks about it, it's a very minor detail, isn't it? And in her case, right? So it's not authorization for prescription of opiates is required every 30 days. That is her case. It's not a general case for everyone. Maybe some people require authorization of this prescription every 15 days. It's possible that they might require the prescription every 60 days. So it really depends on, and it cannot be applied to everyone like the first one. So that cannot be true. and that cannot and that cannot be the main idea that she's trying to convey. So the only option that is correct here is the main. I'm not really satisfied with the main idea, it being a main idea, but that's the only correct option and most appropriate option here. So we're going to go with the government that can play a key role in chronic pain management, which is option number 3. Okay. Now we're going to do another one. Let's read the prompt. The first things first, read the prompt. What is the lecture mainly about? So it's going to be a lecture, and you need to listen to everything, and you need to understand what is the main purpose of this lecture. And don't read the options yet. Try to listen, and then we'll look at the options together.
I should say one more thing about theory. It's great to discover theory, but you have to lose a lot. And you may have noticed, or maybe you didn't, how much you lose. Partly you don't notice it much because here at the university, everybody's dedicated to theory. And what's left out is perception, because you use your mind, not your eyes. Skill, you're not supposed to have any particular sort of bodily kind of skills. There's a kind of mental thing, but let's not call that skill. I mean, I'm just calling skill the way you cope with everyday stuff that you use and so forth. Intuition, it's not fair to have intuition. I mean, you can have intuition, but it's not theory. It's not something that everybody has to believe until you can put it into language and argue for it. Gets rid of emotions, the body, tradition.
Right. Okay. So I hope you had a chance to, understand what the speaker was talking about and what the lecture was about, and mainly started with the first sentence was kind of gave it away, what the topic of the lecture was. Let's look at the options now. The first option says perception and how it relates to the mind and eyes. It talked about a lot of information, and one of them was perception. So we're not gonna focus. I mean, it can't be how it relates to mind and eye. That was just one point made here, so that can't be the main option, right? Excuse me. Second option, intuition and how to use it from the theory. To form theory, intuition and how to use it to form theory. Excuse me. Number 3, theory and how it forces you to lose aspects of yourself. Number 4, skill and how it should be applied in a university setting. Okay, so we've got option number 4. Let's look at the transcription. I'm going to read it out, and we're going to go straight to the responses, and we'll look at the explanation, all right? Okay, I should say one more thing about theory. It's great to discover theory, but you have to lose a lot, and you may have noticed you maybe or maybe you didn't how much you lose. Partly you don't notice it much because here at the university everybody's dedicated to theory, and what's left out is perception, because you use your mind, not your eyes. The skill, you're not supposed to have any particular sort of bodily kind of skills. There's a kind of mental thing, but let's not call that skill. I'm just calling skill the way you cope with everyday stuff that you use and so forth. Intuition, it's not fair to have intuition. I mean, you can have intuition, but it's not theory. It's not something that everybody has to believe until you can put it into language and argue for it. Gets rid of emotions, the body, tradition. Okay, so let's look at the answers. The first, so obviously we want to look for the prompt here says, what is the lecture mainly about? The first option is perception and how it relates to mind and eyes. This response is incorrect. Perception is discussed in relation to what theory does not include. The speaker says your mind, not your eyes. It doesn't talk about the relationship between the mind and eyes, and the main topic is not perception. Then option number 2, intuition and how to use it to form theory. This response is incorrect. The lecturer declares that intuition is separate from the formation of theory by saying you can have intuition, but it's not theory. Option number 3, and again, if you look at the question, what is the lecture mainly about? It's theory and how it forces you to lose aspects of yourself. Okay, so that is the main topic, and it was mentioned in the start what it is. So if you go back to the first sentence that the speaker says, I should say one more thing about theory. It's great to discover theory, but there you have to lose a lot, and all of the aspects that you lose, it talks about those, right? So explanation, this response is correct. The lecturer begins by saying that he is talking about theory. He says it's great to discover theory, but you have to lose a lot, and then goes on to list the things that one loses in pursuit of theory, including perception, skill, intuition, emotions, and the body. Option number 4 is skill and how it should be applied in university setting. It's not about skill. The response is incorrect because the lecturer provides a definition of skill, but skill is not the focus of the lecture. Multiple choice, multiple answer, and multiple choice, single answer, they both gives you 7 seconds before you listen to the actual recording. The most important thing is to read the prompt. There are different types of prompt, and I gave you about 28 types of different prompts, and what are the skills that are tested and what are the things that you should look for. We talked about relevant information. We talked about irrelevant information, redundant information. So you want to make sure if you read the prompt properly, you will be looking for the relevant information. You want to note them down. Do not read options until you have finished listening to the recording. After the recording has finished, you start reading the options, and based on your information that you noted down, you look at the options and select the correct ones. Okay, so our session for today concludes here. This is all I have for multiple choice, multiple answer, and multiple choice, single answer. And I wish you all the best so far. I hope you're doing great with this course, and I'll see you in the next lesson.